So I thank Alex for giving me a question mark. I wanted to make a question mark and then have the word truth and various synonyms for it floating around in the background, maybe in multiple languages. But I'm going to start with a quote from E.T. Jaynes from the famous Gibbs-Boltzmann entropy paper, by the way, where he says, "Perhaps the most difficult problem of all is to learn how to state clearly what is the specific question we are trying to answer." I think part of the point of this conference has been to do just that, to try and figure out what the questions are, okay? And I mean, it is the Foundational Questions Institute, and I think we've done a good job at that. But I also sometimes think that we, in science, fail to be sufficiently introspective at times. And as Peter Byrne pointed out directly or indirectly, I think we need to continue to question. Even when we think we're right, I think we need to continue to question. So I'm going to follow up with another quote. Some of you quantum people out there may know Herb Bernstein. And Herb and Mike Fortune wrote a book about 12 years ago and that I really immensely enjoy about how science works. And they have a great quote from there that says, "Language matters. Language is essential to reason and can't be gotten rid of so easily with a few new machines. Somewhere along the line, no matter how long that line is, every experiment, every mathematical equation, every pure numerical value will have to find its way into words." And I think that's something that we really need to keep in the back of our minds. Actually, maybe not so much in the back of our minds, but in the front of our minds. So briefly, in relation to this particular conference on time, just some ideas that I have gleaned from this in relation to that, is that in terms of words, we need to find a way to agree on what we mean when we use words like entropy and time, and when we discuss certain concepts like the second law of thermodynamics. And I think the point was subtly, or not so subtly, made by several people, including, I noticed there were some things that Gavin Crook said yesterday in his talk. Obviously, Victoria's talk just now was an excellent example of some of that. And Richard Ether pointed out just a minute ago in a question that in addition to this, we need to discuss sort of the nitty-gritty of things more often. So in other words, we need to find more ways to agree on the whole process from the beginning through to the end. Otherwise, we sometimes get to something that we think we agree on and we don't really. And you know, the second law is an excellent example of that. I have my own opinion on it, but since the 1950s, no less than 15 articles proposing new or revised statements of the second law have appeared in a single journal, that being the American Journal of Physics. So if there was any consensus that I could say could have been reached from this conference, it would be that everyone seems to agree that time is somehow related to entropy. And I'm sure people are, you know, that some of you are probably saying, well, duh, okay, yeah, time is related to entropy. Indeed, this probably could have been a conference on entropy. But what's entropy? And I think that's a concept that over the course of the conference we have not been able to necessarily agree on, even when we think we do agree on it. I think people thought they were talking about the same thing at times and then later realized they really weren't. And I think these are some of the issues that still need to be grappled with, and I think these are some of the fundamental issues that were raised at this conference. But it's not just a matter of agreeing, it's a matter of being also clear and consistent in our language when we discuss certain concepts, okay? And I'll just give the example that came from the ship. People repeatedly kept referring to space and time as being sort of, the idea that relativity told us that time is the same as space. Well, relativity does not say that. Relativity said time is ever so slightly different, and relativity acknowledges that. The signature is slightly different. And I think we all know that, but we get lazy in our use of language at times. And I think the problem is that we get lazy in our use of language, it becomes ingrained, and then we forget the important aspects of things, and problems then sort of start to grow in a weird way. And I think these are things that we have to be careful of. And so finally, the last thing I think I certainly took away from this conference, but that I think has become very clear, is that we need to learn to work across disciplinary boundaries, not just within physics, so the subdisciplines within physics, but across disciplinary boundaries in the sciences and even in the humanities and social sciences in order to address what science will be in the 21st century. You know, complexity, I think, plays a major role in almost everything that we do, that all of us do, whether we realize it or not. And to really understand complexity on all levels, I think we need to engage in a much broader discussion across many disciplines. So, thank you.